Okay, this week in iOS Bootcamp is looking at a backend database using core data. Here's the app, the finished app, and I'm going to go over how to complete this in the next few moments. So when the app runs, you can search the app by name, click the call button and call it from your phone, hit edit, edit the app, edit the content, update it. To add a new content or contact, hit the plus symbol. Full name up here, email here. And you can also delete contacts by swiping to the left. So the GitHub link is in this week's course, goes to this site. There's a readme.doc that we use for step-by-step. I've already downloaded the app on my Mac, and I'm just going to use it to speed up the process to show you how this app works. Okay, so we're using core data and UI Tableview to create the app. The first thing we'll want to do is create a new single view project. Make sure core data is checked. Universal and Swift. We'll call it MyContacts and save it to desktop or your documents. Single view. Swift, Universal, core data. And since I've already created one earlier, I'm going to do MyContacts 1. But you can create yours MyContacts. And we want to uncheck all but portrait. Then we're going to create our contact database using core data. It's much like an Excel spreadsheet or a table if you've created any tables before. In SQL, it's fairly straightforward. With the new iOS 10, they made it even easier to use. So we're going to add an entity called contact, which is like a table name, and then 3 fields, email, full name, and phone, all 3 strings. So contact's the entity, email, phone, full name. Then we're going to go to the view controller and add in these objects: a back button, a navigation bar, 3 text fields, 2 buttons, and a label, and an image down here. So we'll click on my storyboard, and there's a view controller. I'm going to hide my outline here. We'll start with the navigation title first. Go ahead and name it My Contact. Excuse me. We want a bar button item for the back button. It's going to be named # symbol BACK. We then want 3 text fields underneath that. As soon as you make your first one, you can just do a Command D. It'll duplicate that object. You'll notice when I'm dragging in each subsequent text field, I'm allowing the guides to snap in on each step down. So iOS Storyboard will do that for you. And so they just snap into make sure they're the same width. It makes sure that it's the same width and everything. It makes it look a lot nicer. And we've got a couple buttons here. This one here I'm going to make a little wider because it's going to be named 2 things. I'm also going to make it left alignment. And the initial name for this one is Save. I'm going to Command D that and duplicate it and put this one to the right. Make it a little bit shorter than the other one, or not as wide to fit. And I'm going to make this one right justify, and is edit. And I'm going to button here as well for the call button. And we want to label down here just in case there's an error. It'll display the error. I'm going to select it, center it here, as I'm doing here on the right side of the Xcode. Get rid of the word label. Then we want an image down at the bottom. I want it to be fairly square, but it doesn't have to be exact. And we'll just put it right in the center at the bottom and let your guides allow you to fix that. I'm going to make these text boxes a little bit wider. I'm going to make it the same width as this image object here. I'm going to click this to the left. I'm going to click all 3 of these to the left. And then if you do a command click on all 3 objects, you can select one of these 3 boxes and drag over to the right. Okay. Now before I forget, I'm going to click on my ViewController icon here. Go to Editor, Resolve Auto Layout Issues. reset to suggested constraints. Once I've done that, I'm going to now bind in my objects, both actions, outlets, and delegates. The delegates are going to be needed for hiding the keyboard when the app runs. So click on one of these to start with, and I'm going to go to the Show the Assistant Editor. Move this over where we can see it. And now I have my ViewController, which is this file here, and my view. And we'll bring in one at a time. And again, some of these are both going to be outlet and action, like the button. Most of the buttons are action and outlets both, to where you can control the text and the hiding and showing. So I'm going to put some space in here. In fact, on this one, I believe I just need a action one only on that. And I'm just going to do a few of these, and then I'm going to bring in the code to make it a little faster, just to show you. That one, I want to declare that it is actually a button, so make sure it's UI button action instead of any. This one is full name, email, phone. Control clicking as I'm bringing these over. btn save, outlet, and btn save action. And make sure and select UI button. It's the same name, just one's an outlet, one's an action. btn edit. And this one here is status. I'm going to make it a little wider to fit everything else. And the image does not need to be bound. Then we're going to take each one of these three, control click it to the view controller, and make it a delegate. That'll help hide the keyboard, which I'll go over in the code in a second. If we click on the view controller one last time over here, we can actually now hover over using the right arrow button here, the 0 with an arrow in it, shows a connection inspector. As we go through here, we can actually see the bindings that we have in there. And just make sure and double check that everything's correct. And you can use the Word document to make sure that's the case. That you have correct number of outlets and actions and delegates. The actions will be down towards the bottom. Delegates will all be right above that. And then the actions or the outlets will be at the top. I'll do a save. We need to put a placeholder in each one of the text boxes for full name, email, phone. So I'm going to click back on the regular standard editor to do that. Click on this icon here for the property inspector. And again, we want full name, email, phone for the placeholder. And this is in lieu of having to use a label. Since we do this, we don't need a label. So we'll tell the user what's expected to have in that data. Now we need to add a UI table view and embed a view controller in it, or navigation controller. So we're going to take and hit the minus here on the percentage to move some stuff around here on the storyboard. Move this view controller. Go to the very top of your object controller here, your object finder library, and let's find the table view controller and drag it in. Once you drag it in, we're going to name the title MyContacts. Before we do that, we need to do the embed in navigation controller. So click on it to where the circle is selected on the view controller. Go up to editor menu, embed in navigation controller. And it should add a third one over here, this navigation controller. And you can select everything and bring it over. Now we can go ahead and add in the MyContacts title, make it the initial view controller. And we want to click on this one here, which is navigation controller, and go over here to the inspector and make it the initial. That way it's switching from this one, which was the initial one at the app creation, to this one, which is the menu that we'll use for the contacts. Now we're going to add a bar button item. Make sure it's the add, which is a plus symbol, and we'll drag and drop some segues. So I'm going to make this a little bigger to see it easier. Yeah. So I'm going to go to my object viewer here, my object library, and find the bar button item. Drag it right here into the title, navigation bar. On the right, change it from custom to add. And we're going to control click drag it to the view controller, select present modally. We're going to click here in the prototype area and then go over to the inspector and select for custom, so change it to right detail. For the identifier, it's cell with a cap C. Then you're going to come over here to the this area here that you just created the right detail. Control click drag. Now you'll have two segues here. If you click on each one, it'll toggle between the two. The top one is here. The bottom one is here. All right, on this one here, we need to change the identifier here to update contacts. There we go. Now that we've done that, we've done the right detail, the cell, we did the drag and drop present modally. We did the update contact for the segue. We updated the title. I'll save it, do a Command S. Now we're going to add a new file for a UI Tableview class because we need that for this one we just added, the UI Tableview. And we're going to call it Contact TableviewController. So over here in MyContacts, right click on your folder, go to New File, select Cocoa Touch class, Next. Make sure and select UI TableviewController. And we're just going to put in the front of it the word Contact. Then click Next and click Create. And here's the file we just created. Click back on main.storyboard. Select the yellow circle for ViewController on this file here, which is the UI Tableview. Then go over here to the right side of Xcode on the Identity Inspector. You'll have a class drop down. We need to select Contact TableviewController. Do a Command S. All right. Once we've done that, we've went ahead and added the class. We've binded it on the storyboard. We selected the class. Now we're going to add in some code for the ViewController and Contact ViewController. And so basically we're going to get some code for this file and for this file. So click on these links in Word. It'll bring you to the ViewController first. And all you need to do is a Command A, Command C to copy it. Come over here to the ViewController, do a Command A, Command V. And everything's in there as far as what we just did as far as objects, also code, which we'll go over in a little bit. I want to go back and get the next one, which is the Control ViewController. Control Table ViewController. Do a Command A, Command C. And we're replacing on this one as well. And if you named everything right as far as your objects, you should be okay. Now let's go over the code here in the ViewController to show what we did here, what I did. And you can follow the steps in the Word document. And this one actually, the way I designed it is you could technically click on each one of these and just follow step by step as it is in the code, which gives the comments like 0, add this statement, this import statement for core data. And then 0A, added the contact, because you would already have these in there because you'd already done those as we did earlier. So add the contact information for the button edit. 0B, call number, add this code in between the begin copy and end copy for the BTN call button, so on and so forth. And so the way the code works here is you need, for core data, you have to have core data import statement. We've already went over the bindings together on the buttons and labels and the text views. Created the buttons, actions, and this when this app runs initially, the way it's going to work is, since we made the initial controller. When it runs, it's going to hit this, which is in tandem going to load this table view controller, which is actually this file here, the contact table view controller. So this will be the very first file it hits, and it's needing for a table view controller, core data and foundation both. I added in here the core delegates needed, which is to search. You need a UI search results updating, UI search bar delegate, and UI search control delegate. Added 3 variables for the searching and finding of data and loading of data from the core data. Then adding the UI search function, this one right here, looks for in the database the full name field that we created. And if you type, when a user types in search criteria, I'll fire up the app. When they type in search here, it's using the full name field only. Okay, go back to the contact table view controller. So that's the updating search according to whether or not they're using the search. Then view will appear, number 4 here. It loads whenever the view appears. So anytime you come back to it, either initial load or coming back to it, its only job is to load the DB, which is load database. Number 5 says that the function here loads the database and refreshes the table. So for core data to work, you have to do what's called a manage context, which we're using this persistent store, which basically gets access to this contact database and all the contacts in there. It then fetches it by the contact name, which is contact database name is contact. Then it loops through and fetches all of the objects, loads it in the table view. If it can't load it, it would say that the code at the bottom could not fetch. The Viewdidload, its job is basically to constantly see if the search controller is being used or not, and make sure that it fits exactly on the phone or iPad being used. This is a default function in every table view. Did receive memory warning, just manage memory. This next one is updated on number 7, changing the default 0 to 1. It returns 1 basically column of data. This function here, depending on if the search is used, it can use 1 or 2 array. One is a filtered table for searching, or the contact array if they're not using searching. So an example is here, it would be using in this view the contact array. When I type in SA, it's using the filtered contact data to load this table view here. Next, this is determining on what is being clicked on in the table view. And when it's clicked on, it returns that unique cell and loads it in the database. Here it tells you what you're printing on, or what you're selecting on in the code. In fact, I will stop the simulator to show you that while it's running. and it's running the app for the first time. This app we just created for contact. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add in a contact for us to use. Okay, and as I click on one of these here, you'll notice here in the code it says I've selected cell 1. Go back, selected cell 0. And so the reason I'm mentioning that is that's what's occurring in this section of code here. It's printing out the contents of what's being selected. All right. Down here in the edit function on number 9, what it's for is if you wanted to come back here and swipe one of these to the left and delete it, that's what this function here is doing. It's going to allow you to swipe it and delete them. The last one is a prepare for segue. What it's going to do is take the cell you've clicked on, whether it be a search result cell or a non-search results cell. What that means is, I'll add in one more here. So right now this is a non-search result, just a load, which would fall upon this last one here. All right. If it was a search result one, like say I just wanted to find Sally, and click here, it would fire here, and the self.result search controller is active. So when it sees this on the code, it knows it's active and being searched for and being utilized. So that's the contact view controller. And here's some of the code in here we had to put in the, remember when we made the segues, one of them was we had to add in the update contacts. And that's what that's found at. Okay, on the view controller, which the view controller is the page that shows the contacts information. So when it gets to this page, what its job is to do basically is to come in initially on every page, just like in the last one. The Viewdidload is going to be the very first function that's hit. So Viewdidload is a default function on the code in Swift, and anything you put in that's going to run initially. So it looks to see if the contact database is null. If it's null, meaning that they click this button here. It's going to be null. There's no data that's brought over. It's a fresh contact that's going to be created. That's what would come here. Sorry. Contact not equals null would be this one here, if one is selected, meaning the contact is selected. Then it's going to plug in the full name here, email here, phone here. It's going to hide the call, or it's going to show the call button. The edit button is going to be shown. Full name is enabled. It's false, meaning you can't edit these right now. Email's false and phone's false, unenabled. And the BTN save button is hidden. So if I hit this edit button, you'll notice update now comes back. I can make an update, and it updates that content. We'll go over that in a second. And so this determines on the load whether it's a contact selected. If it is, it's here. If it's not, and it's a plus symbol, it's going to be here. And you'll notice the call button is hidden, the edit button's hidden, the full name is enabled, email's enabled, phone's enabled. And lastly, the full name is becoming first responder, meaning it's selected there for the user to start typing. Next here is tap gesture to recognize keyboard, or the tap gesture on the view. And so what that's for is if I click on a cell or one of these fields, keyboard pops up, I click away, keyboard goes away. All right. So the add gesture is added to the view. The touches begin as code needed for all apps to, when anything outside of, anything on the view is touched, it's going to dismiss the keyboard function. And all that's going to do is hide the keyboard on, in this case, full name, email, and phone. So if I've tapped on one of these and then I tap away anywhere that's not a text field, it's going to fire the dismiss keyboard. Also on the save function, let's look at that. When they come in here and enter in a content, so when they enter a contact here and hit save, it's going to come to this save function. So it says here contact database is not equal to null. In this case, it is equal to null because we're just creating it. It's going to go to this path, the else path. It's going to find that entity contact, which is right here with all the attributes. It's going to bind it as a managed object. We're going to take the context or contents of full name, email, phone, and plug it in the data, the actual data fields, full name, email, phone. This code here is attempting to save that data. If there's an error, it'll kick it out to that status label. Okay. Next one is after they've hit save and it's successful, it's going to go to this function here, this line of code here, which dismisses the view and goes back to the main contact form, which is the table view. Lastly is the back button, and the back button does what it's supposed to do, just as go back. So one last thing I'll show you. You want to add in one of the challenges for this assignment this week is adding icons. I'm going to go through the steps on creating an icon. It's in the steps on our website, but I already have icons I've created for this. And so I will go to my email, which has already been generated, some icons, show you what it will look like when you download them and create them. Okay, so here's my contact us. See if that's the right one. That's it. So this is what it's going to look like when you get the email from the Make App Icon website. You'll expand the iOS, and what we're going to do is come over to Xcode, click on MyContacts, go here to the right in the middle where it says App Icons, click on this arrow. We're going to take this folder appicon.iconset and drag it into that section And you'll notice it brings them all in. We can click on these bottom 4 with a command click and get rid of those 4 that are stragglers that we don't need. Click back here on the My Contacts. Go down to the icon section again and select App Icon 1. Also, to add in the images information on the main storyboard for the view controller here, I'm going to create a new group called Images. I'm going to control click on that and add a file to that group. And I'm going to use this iTunes Artwork 2. That's what it looks like, the image I created from the icon. Go back to the main.storyboard, go to that image object, come over here to the right to the properties and select the image. I want to make sure that the content mode is not scale to fill but aspect fill. I'm also going to add it to the launch screen. So let me add an image to that. And I will make it aspect fit again, so it keeps the dimensions. And right now, the way the icon looks on this is like it's this one right here. So it should change now that we run it again. And with the new contact icon, my contact icon I created. And you can search to Google for an icon or create your own and just follow the example steps I give you in the assignment this week. And there's a new one. So that concludes the My Contacts using core data. Go through the steps again yourself. Follow the Word document all the way through testing. And again, challenge on this one is adding a new icon, launch screen, and image to the view controller. All right, so have a great week. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.